I have to spend money like crazy. And one way of gauging whether or not you're on program is whether you're spending money fast enough. If you're not spending money fast enough, you know there's going to be a problem. And that's where we're at the moment in terms of program. It's just going to be like, order that, order that, order that. You're ordering everything at once. Well, let's go it this way, and then we'll walk around that way.
So how's it been then?
Slower than I would like, but really well. I mean, it's all going according to in terms of the actual what we're creating. Unless we have 6 of the 9 sold, and some of those people are now wanting to make small minor changes inside. Can slow things down a little bit, like on plot 8. They wanted to make a change that we needed a non-material amendment on, but it's pretty minor. But that had to go back to SIPs. For those minor modifications. So that just adds time when it's just going back and forth like that. You've got plot 3, you've got plot 4, and you've got plot 5, which they look like they're just huge out of the ground sort of bunkers, but actually the ground still has to slope up to it, and then there's a retaining wall which basically goes in between each plot, which retains a lot of ground behind it. That gets leveled off, and that becomes the gardens for each plot. So the gardens are actually to the side of the plot. So then you've got this long, effectively wall going all the way along here. But the ground is probably brought up another meter probably, and then it'll just slope down to the back. So it's a little bit hard to kind of fathom what exactly is going on here at the moment from a lot of people, but there's a hell of a lot of work in these basements. These are far more engineered than we would have back in the States. I'm not even sure I don't think we put any steel in some of it in our standard basement. Equally, it's been a long time since I've lived there, so I don't know whether those have moved on, but all I know is my dad likes to tell me that he would have done these 3 in about 4 weeks, which is super helpful. And then I have to tell him, well, it's just not I don't know what you're doing over there, but look at it. It just takes time.
So what's the process here?
So they form the slab first, and what they call a kicker, which is that little sort of upstand, and that's so that then when they put the forms on it, they have something to clamp the forms onto on either side. If we go down to this way, but basically that form gets pushed up against that kicker, which is that little upstand. Again, my dad would say, "Oh, we pour the whole thing in once. Why? I don't know why you're not doing that." Well, I can't tell these guys what to do necessarily, but we've done this in 3, and that was they were concerned about pouring too much at once. Some of the concrete starts to go off before they poured the whole thing, and you don't get this adhesion. And then we needed to pour some under the windows. And these guys are just overly cautious, I think, just about making sure that it's right, really, which is fine by me, because you want the basements not to leak and to be really robust. They're not done very often over here, are they? So the last thing I want to be doing is going back to somebody's leaky basement. But I don't think these will leak in the first place, but then they have, if we go up this way, I'll show you, basically, once they strip this tomorrow, they will be able to start the damp proofing. So there's an external damp proofing layer, and then there's an internal perimeter drain, and then there are 2 sump pumps where the perimeter drain goes into. So, and there's an internal membrane as well. So basically they won't leak, but even if they do leak, it goes into this sump, and there's a primary sump and a secondary sump in case that fails. I mean, it's crazy, but and you can see they did a little bit of repair patch, but you won't see any of that, and that's because we had a little bit of honeycombing because it was kind of difficult with all the steel that's in there to get the pokers down all the way down to basically vibrate it. They tried a slightly different thing on this next pour, which I think will work a little bit better, but I mean, it would be a problem obviously if that honeycombing went all the way through, but it was just a bit of surface imperfection basically. So now we have some stepped footings that come up here, and the rest of it is, so if you can imagine the top of that just runs all the way across here. So that's basically where that plinth, if you run a line through, that's where that plinth finishes. Yeah, so that's those three, which is, the other thing is, of course, you can only pour so many times just because of the weather and having to get a pump and scheduling concrete. All of those things have been a little bit more difficult. You might book concrete in for Friday, and if it's raining, everybody cancels their concrete. And the one decent day you have, everybody wants to concrete. So it's really a thing to organize and to keep your program up, because you might only have, I mean, even in summer, you might only have one day that you can pour. Whereas really what you want to be doing is, pouring, stripping that the next day, setting it up the next day, pouring sort of every 3 days. Equally, if they got tons of forms, they could do that as well, but that would be very expensive as well. So yeah, so that bit's taking longer than I would have liked, but that should be, I reckon we've got a couple of months to get all of those completed. And then we're obviously cracking on with the other units up here. Plot 8 is sold now. They're just doing the drains in there. The steel is being erected in here on the 10th of September. And then the SIPs will be installed early November. Yeah, so basically the reason this floor isn't in yet is because we have to set all the steels in first. And then we have to concrete the steels in, then we can finish concreting the floor. The scaffolding will go up the week after the steels go in, and then the SIPs. So plot 9, a lot of the internal framing is done. I think they've got about another week on that. They're putting the windows in now. And now that we've sorted out the whole roof situation, we'll strip that roof and put on the proper final membrane, which is a Tyvek product called Tyvek Metal, which is specifically for standing seam roofs. And we'll see if we'll have a look at how far they've gotten on the roof over there. It's pretty quick stuff, really. So I think between the Velexes and the roof, it's going to take them 3 to 4 weeks. And the Velexes are quite complex because of the, you'll see there's some triple Velexes. They're very big Velexes, so Velexes. What do you call them over here? You call them Velexes, right? You call them Velux, and yet the windows are Velfac, and they're the sister company to each other. In the States, we call them Velexes, which is like Velfac, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, I'm guessing you guys are wrong.
We're probably wrong, yeah.
So, do you want to walk into 9, or do you want to?
Yeah, show us around. I mean, yeah.
Okay. Again, this one should go quite a bit quicker and smoother, just because we know we've done stuff on that one already. So things that we fixed or corrected, shall I say, that we didn't have to go back and correct a second time, was lifting these heads. We know what we're doing with the stairs. It's really loud, isn't it? We know what we're doing with the staircases.
So is this very similar to next door, is it?
Yeah, pretty similar, yeah. Just getting ready to put one of the windows in, so they got this little window brackets. These suckers are super heavy because of the triple glazing. The fitters are from a company called Foster Construction, and we have probably their best fitter. So yeah, according to him, it's going smoothly on the windows. So most of the framing, like I say, is done down here. We're just trying to get it weather tight. They're actually preparing the flat roof here, is what they're doing. Which is why you can hear them skirting on there. They're starting the other staircase in here. Those are the brackets for the windows. We effectively have those designed, and we either shortened or lengthened some of them just to work a little bit better based on what we found worked on plot 7. That's something that because we could work it in at the design stage instead of last time where we had to basically go back in and put in some structural elements to open up two windows on the side. We were also able to put in this huge window in the center, which the buyer may decide to glaze or they may decide to leave open, depending on how they're going to use the room. We'll go out this way. What else? What else?
How's the barn coming along?
Yeah, we hadn't done much with that because we're still trying to figure out how best to do it without it falling down. But the rest of it, plot 2 is going well, and but again, we've been struggling to get the windows ordered on that, and all the windows are on a 12-week order. So it's 3 months before you can get some windows, which means you can only do so much inside. I mean, 12 weeks to get windows. That's kind of I love these windows, but it's a lot. It's a long time. So basically what we have to do for the remaining units is basically we're going to be ordering plot 8 now. There's not even a building there. We're going to be ordering all the other ones in quick succession as well. I have to spend money like crazy. I mean, the funny thing is about, I don't know if it's about all other types of businesses as well, but certainly in development, is that one way of gauging whether or not you're on program is whether you're spending money fast enough. If you're not spending money fast enough, there's going to be a problem, and that's where we're at the moment in terms of program. And that's why pretty soon, come the beginning of October, it's just going to be like order that. You're ordering everything at once, and we'll see how that affects logistics on site. That could be pretty interesting. Tim might be pissed off at me because he's got 20, well, not 20, but he's got 5 houses, windows, arriving all around the same time. But hopefully by that time, we'll be further back on the site. So, yeah.
Cool.
Are we going inside this one?
Yeah,
and then
take us inside. So when it's raining, do you bring everything inside?
Yeah. Unless it was kind of, if it's a little bit hit and miss or it's just spitting, it's not a huge problem to carry on outside. But that's another thing is just you have a workforce, and some people say, well, just get more and more people in and just flood it with people so you can get more work done. But then if it rains, all of a sudden you have half the work that you did have because half of it's outside, and all of a sudden what are you going to do with all these other people? Or and you ultimately you could get completely caught up with everything inside, and then you have nothing for anybody to do when the weather's not great. So that also takes quite a bit of managing.
So in terms of putting your team together, have you got guys here multi-skilled?
Well, the joiners, so they're really, joiners by trade, but they're doing the roofing because it's many of the same skills. I'm not even sure that really it's not more geared towards joiners than standard roofers for this type of material. So they'll do that. They'll do everything internally, externally. They'll do all the cladding. This is that's the Siberian larch.
Is that for the outside or the inside?
This is for the outside. You don't have to treat it or anything, but the layman might look at it and think, oh, that's just a bit of softwood. But if you compare it with softwood, you see how this is got effectively a couple of rings of growth?
Yeah.
It's got a few, and look how tight that is. That's how slowly this material is grown. Obviously, that adds to the look of it as well. This would not be an attractive product to put externally, and it would rot within a very short period of time. This larch, typically could last 100 years. I think they say 60, because obviously nobody's going to say, it'll definitely last 100 years, but it'll last a very long time. And that tight grain gives it a different look. It ultimately will turn kind of a light gray. Right. Let's go up the stairs over here, and I'll show you upstairs in the Velexes. So these are these triple windows. It's a full Velux product. Originally, we looked at whether or not this piece was going to be Velfac, and those were going to be Velux. But in the end, there was no way, there wasn't a real successful way of joining those three components. So there was a lot of toing and froing from, obviously, they're companies that work together, but they really couldn't figure a way to combine Velvac and Velux. So that's hence why all three are now in Velux.
Is this a bedroom then?
Yeah, it's a bedroom. That's not the means of escape in the bedroom, because there's two windows, one in the dressing room and one in the ensuite. So, but those tilt in, and the other ones just our own center pivots. So it's a nice little feature of these rooms. Basically, these providing really nice views. Even this one is effectively looking straight down the road, so it's not looking at any other houses or anything. It's a little bit hard to tell at the moment, but it allows a lot of light in. So I think they turned out nice, especially when we get rid of the scaffolding. It's going to make a huge difference.
So how's the building been going then with the SIPs? Has it been as smooth as you'd hoped it would be?
Nothing is quite as precise as you think it is, particularly in construction. And I found that about SIPs, and I think even the installers and everybody would say that, look, they have to make some adjustments on site and that kind of stuff. But that's okay, because obviously there is the ability to do that. If you couldn't do that, that would be a problem. Well, for example, basically this header, they've made a mistake in this load-bearing wall in terms of they'd forgotten that the height was going up 75 mil because of the screen, the insulation, everything. But they were able to come in here and just lift the header up, so they were able to adjust it. Same with there's one in here where the loading was a bit more, so they actually just stuck a piece of steel in there instead. So they find a solution that works to correct something, and it's fine. This is the product. This is Catnic SSR2, made by Tata Steel. So there's some big names behind it. But again, this type of roof should last 60 years, I think, is what they say. And again, that's probably, I don't know. I've seen crappy barns that, have old tin sheds that have been there for 100 years. So, there's nothing really to go wrong with the product in the first place. It's a robust material. Be very difficult to puncture, break. It's not like slates. So like barns, which obviously have to be done in the blue slate. As soon as somebody walks on that, you have the chances you might snap a slate. That slide, you don't notice it. That slides down later, and obviously it allows a little place for water to ingress. Equally, it should last a long time, but there's just a lot more to go wrong with it, really. Again, you get a little bit of water in a tiny crack in a slate, and then when it freezes, it expands, and that also causes the slate to crack and break or allow watering inside. So I think you'll see more of this product. And the nice thing about Catnic and this SSR2 product is that they've actually come up with a way just to make it a lot easier to install.
So last time we were here, the SIPs roofs were being put on.
Yeah.
So what's the process from then? What's happened
Well,
since then?
they cover it with essentially that cheap membrane that you see over there. And I say cheap, it's just an inexpensive membrane that you would use for any kind of slate roof. That kind of provides the protection that it needs at the moment, but it's open to the elements. It doesn't matter if it gets ripped and if we have to patch it up and all that kind of stuff. We then strip that off when we're ready, and we apply this stuff here, which, if you come around here, this has got this rough kind of, it's
Velcro.
like a honeycomb plastic material, and it's got all these little tiny holes in it. And what that does is it allows, well, supposedly the idea is that any vapor comes through, and then can basically, this honeycomb stuff holds the metal sheet off of the bottom layer, allowing any moisture to come down, and it basically comes down on the top of this and just drips off into the gutter. It's not the easiest stuff to use. It's crazy expensive. So like, if that's 500 pounds, this is like 2,500 pounds. So really good stuff. Looks like they've got one Velux left to do, which is here. These are the eave plates that go on, and basically, if you remember, we've got a gutter that pops up underneath here like this. So we'll slide that underneath there. The Siberian larch comes up past it, so you don't see the gutters, you don't see the downpipes. The downpipes are basically hidden behind here, which I think is going to make for a really slick looking, minimal fenestration externally. This isn't finished. You all right? You all right? Is it that bad?
It's not great.
Jesus, you can't go anywhere now. You're good. Is it really that bad? So basically, this isn't finished because all this has to be trimmed back and dressed. This has got a gutter here. You see that goes. That will fall into our gutter, which is coming across here. And then what we've decided to do is actually to treat this kind of like a window. So this will have a comper band, which is like an expandable foam weatherproofing material that'll be applied into that. And then we'll also have the Siberian larch trim like we did on the windows as well.
Just demonstrate that gutter thing again.
It comes down maybe some internal channels, but it ends up in this gutter here, and then and it basically does that. And
so that then attaches to your gutter that's hidden behind the larch.
No, this gets cut back, and kind of this gets finished like this, and gets cut back to there. Yeah. So you can imagine a line going straight across there, and that falls into the gutter that's here. So it falls into our regular gutter. Another reason why we were kind of slow to figure out exactly what we were doing on the Veluxes is because we didn't. This is a flashing kit that's primarily used for like pan tiles, because you can move it, you can form it around things. Velux has got another system, but it just doesn't quite, it's not quite there when it comes to standing seam. So we've had to use this, which I don't think is as an attractive method, and I'll show you when we go around to the other side. But in fact, we'll go on that. We'll go that way now. And okay. Do you want me to hold your hand? I mean, it's fine. I mean,
it wobbles. Yeah.
If you want to stop here, I'll show you a little something. I want to just show you this really, but this is basically a little cover piece. They've still got to crimp this bottom edge, but basically then our Siberian larch is going to come up past that as well. So from the side, you don't see any of this verge flashing either, which is also, I think, a nice little detail. So you can see basically this just has to basically form around the standing seam, and it's not great, but it's what we've got at the moment that works better than the other method. Velux and Catnik have tried really hard to kind of work something out that does work, but I think it's something that they'll probably will continue to work on and adapt, particularly as more people start to use this product. How come this is still so dusty? Didn't it rain yesterday?
Yeah, we all put it on this morning.
Oh, did you? Oh, right, okay.
We've gone from
Does that come off? I mean, what's the best way to get it off, you think?
Scratch it off.
Let me just ask you about one thing here. Which is helpful, but one guy's off sick, not COVID. So
just get that disclaimer in there.
Just saying. It's got the shits. No.